Hi, I'm Jill with the West Regional Branch of the Mobile Public Library, and I am here today in my own kitchen, and I am going to brew some tea. Specifically, I am going to make a Rooibos chai tea. I had specifically mentioned in another video that I do really like a chai, but they are typically caffeinated because they're mostly made with black tea, where Rooibos is not caffeinated, and I am looking for a good decaf alternative. So I just got this one in the mail and just opened it up, and it kind of smells strongly of anise, which is sort of like licorice flavor, and most chai does have some anise in it. But I don't know if this is going to be exactly what I'm looking for, because my favorite chai is more cinnamon ginger and less anise. But I do like licorice, I do like anise, so it's worth a try. So I'm going to make a quart size small pitcher. Since I've made both Rooibos and chai before, I am just going to kind of follow the directions on what I do with other teas. Generally speaking, if you've made the same type of tea, even if it's not with a different flavor, you would follow the same instructions, because it's the type of tea that you're making that really determines how long you brew it and what temperature and what proportions you use. So let me get started with that. I would usually do half a cup of leaves for a half-gallon pitcher. Since this is a quart pitcher, I'm going to do a quarter cup of leaves. It's a quarter cup in my little basket. And I also do a half cup of sugar because I do a full cup of sugar for the larger pitcher. Alright, and I have already boiled my water, so I'll just get that off the stove. And just pouring that hot water in actually dissolved most of the sugar, but I do like to give it a stir just to be absolutely sure I don't have any sugar like stuck in the bottom, especially when you have a chai, and I put a lot of sugar in a chai. It doesn't all dissolve without a good stir, so give that a stir. And I don't see any sugar left in there, it's all dissolved. I just put in my tea leaves. With chais, I usually do half an hour. So Alexa, set timer for 30 minutes.
30 minutes, starting now.
Okay, now while that steeps, let me just talk a little bit about tea making in general. You know, this is something you've probably gathered from any of my other videos, but I just wanted to make it very clear about how making tea works. All tea brewing is basically the same thing. You're putting leaves in water and leaving it for some amount of time until the flavors infuse into the water. Now you can greatly affect the flavor that you come out with by adjusting your steep time. You know, how long do you leave the leaves in the water? You know, the longer you leave them, the stronger it gets, at least up until a certain point. What temperature water you use, I personally don't find that makes a whole lot of difference in the flavor to me, but some people, I guess, who have a little more sensitive palate can say, you know, 192 degree water makes a difference versus 212 degree water. But you know, I don't notice, but some people do, so you may that's another adjustment you can make. And then of course proportions make a big difference. I mean, the more leaves you put in the water, the stronger the flavor. Same thing with the less leaves you put, the weaker the flavor. And of course, obviously, what kind of leaves you use makes a big difference. Even if you're just talking about the tea plant, green tea tastes different than black tea. And then once you get into flavor additives and herbal teas where you're talking about a whole bunch of different plants, then of course there's a wide range of flavors. But still, you get right down to it, the heart of the matter is basically you put tea leaves in water, let them sit for a while, and then there you go, there's a beverage. And then of course, in addition to that, with the making the brewing process, you can also put all kinds of additives into it. You know, my favorite thing to add is of course sugar. I like sweet beverages, but you can also add milk, you can add lemon, you can add various fruit juices. People add all kinds of things to tea to make various kinds of tea beverages. And you know, it's always good to experiment and try different things and see what you like best. And as far as, you know, you have all these choices and all these different ways to customize your beverage, you know, I always recommend start with what the instructions say. And if there's not instructions on your package, go on Google, you know, and Google what type of tea you have and ask, how do I brew it? And someone's bound to give you some instructions about what temperature water to use, how much tea, how many tea leaves to use per cup, you know, how long to steep it. Try that as a starting point because, you know, odds are for the majority of people, that's going to make a beverage that they like, because the standard instructions become the standard instructions because most people like a cup of tea prepared in that way. But, you know, once you've tried it, the, you know, advised method, don't be afraid to branch out and try something new. Because, I mean, I know personally, I don't like most tea, like just commercially brewed, someone else made it tea, because I find most of them are kind of watery, or if they're not watery, they're all the flavor is the sugar in them, not the actual flavor of the tea. I just like my tea much stronger than the average person likes their tea, which means that lots of times if you follow my recipe, like what I'm making here, you may find that it's too strong a flavor for you and that you actually prefer it with half as many leaves or 2/3 as many leaves as what I'm making. I will say that the Thai tea that I did in a previous video that's kind of orange and it's like the restaurant style Thai tea, that one does taste pretty much like what you'd find in any kind of, you know, Thai restaurant that you order Thai tea in. So that one I probably did not increase the tea leaves much, if any, from what the standard recipe is. But for the majority of teas, you know, the standard recipe, whatever it says, I'm going to increase it by 50%, if not double it. So that is one thing to keep in mind, is you don't necessarily want to 100% copy what I do. I'm just trying to convey the method that basically you put your tea leaves into hot water and out comes a beverage. And to not get overwhelmed or intimidated by doing this, I mean, the worst thing that happens is, okay, yeah, you waste a little leaves and they're not the cheapest, but unless you try, you don't know. Anyway, I will be back when my timer goes off and I will give this a taste and we'll see if it tastes too much like licorice or if it actually tastes like a chai tea. Okay, so my timer just went off and I guess it's now time to taste test this. Okay, so this tea is brown instead of orange, so I guess that means it doesn't have the food coloring that the original Thai tea has. But this is actually a chai, which are technically kind of the same thing, but the Thai, when you see it as Thai tea, it usually means that kind of orangey one. With the you know, orange or red food coloring in it. If it says chai, then that usually is like supposed to be the same kind of combination of spices, but it's more, I guess, serious grown-up tea. And they don't put the orange food coloring in it. I don't know if that's an actual rule or not, but that's just what I've observed over time buying a lot of different kinds of tea. So I'm gonna put a little bit of ice in this and give it a shake to cool it off. And that still smells very anise. I think this is going to be a licorice beverage for sure. I don't think I closed that quite enough. A little tighter. I didn't leave quite enough room for ice because that ice has all dissolved and it's still kind of lukewarm. I can taste the cinnamon in it. I couldn't smell the cinnamon. I can taste it now. It actually tastes more strongly cinnamon than the anise. I'll get a couple ice cubes out of my fridge and my half and half, because it's not really a fair taste test if you don't put your half and half in it. Yeah, that's cool enough. Okay, I said half and half, but I really meant heavy cream. Pretty good. It still doesn't hold a candle to my favorite Thai tea, but it does taste nice. It is very strongly cinnamon. I think I taste the cinnamon more than anything else in this, but it does have a hint of the anise. It's also supposed to have cardamom and ginger in it. I'm not sure I can taste the ginger at all. I can't really taste the cardamom either. It's mostly just anise and cinnamon, but I like both anise and cinnamon, so that is perfectly fine with me. While I've got this out, I've also still have some condensed milk left over from my other Thai tea video, so let me just give a little dash of this makes any difference. I think that slight caramelly flavor really does complement this particular tea, more so than it does the original Thai tea. Well, that is very pleasant, and I think it's at least a reasonable decaf alternative to my favorite. It's not exactly the same. I still, like the full caffeinated version a little bit better, but I have no issue drinking this. It's quite tasty. Anyway, if you have any tea related questions, please leave me a comment down below, and thank you for watching. Bye bye.